So many desires, or as many desires, so many blankets. Covering the radiance of the Spirit. We have to uncover to discover. We have to uncover, discover. We have to uncover, discover.
Welcome everyone to a Divine Discoveries podcast. Today we have a deity special that we're doing. So before we get into that, I just wanted to mention, and we unfortunately didn't mention this in the last episode, but the attacks that happened, unfortunately, in Pahalgam, Kashmir, is something we very, very, very strongly condemn and oppose. And this is just not the direction we as a human society would like to go or would like to ever see happen. And we feel for all the family members who have lost their loved ones in that unfortunate incident, and also the souls that unfortunately departed in that tragic way. So our hearts go out to all the victims, their families, and also we strongly support the forces of Dharma that are taking the right approach to fight the forces of evil. So I just want, on that note, I'd like to start our prayers in a special dedication to all the victims of that incident. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya, Suryakoti Samaprabha, Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakareshu Sarvada, Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Sarvamangala Mangalye Shive Sarvartha Sadike Sharanye Trayambake Devi Narayani Namostute. Om Dum Durgaye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatye Swaha. Om Shrim Mahalakshmiye Namaha. Om Shri Mahakalikaye Namaha. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam. Urvarukamiva bandhanan mrityor mokshiya mamrutat. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya Gurave Sachidananda Murtaye Nishprapanchaya Shantaya Niralambaya Tejase Har Namah Parvati Pataye Har Har Mahadev. Om Apadam Apahartaram Dataram Sarvasampadam Lokabhiramam Shriramam Bhuyo Bhuyo Namamyaham. Shri Rama Jai Rama Jai Jai Rama Shri Rama Jai Rama Jai Jai Rama Shri Rama Jai Rama Jai Jai Rama. Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanurmardharam Devaki Paramanandam Shri Krishnam Vande Jagatgurum. Om Klim Krishnaya Namaha. Om Klim Krishnaya Namaha. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Thank you to all our listeners. For today's episode, we're missing Christiane, but we do have my partner Vikram who's here.
Yeah, hello everybody. We are thrilled to have your support for each of our episodes, and we continue to count on your feedback and your good wishes as we take this endeavor on. And just a reminder that we are on various platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. So you can share us with your friends. You can listen to us at your platform of choice. We are also on social media if you care to follow us. We're on Facebook and Instagram with the Divine Discoveries handles.
Thank you, Vikram, and thank you to all our listeners who have been following us. And speaking of which, Vikram, this is the first time that we actually have received questions from our listeners.
Right.
Yes. So we've been waiting for this. This is episode number 7. And I'm so thankful that those who are been following us regularly they actually were inspired by the last episode we did on cosmic creation and time, which I would say is probably the most scientific episode we've ever done. And the listeners who sent questions, they chose to remain anonymous. But the questions were quite interesting, and I'm glad that we have received them. Thank you to those who have sent them. So I'd like to go ahead and attempt to answer some of these questions. There are three of them. So the first question is, it was very interesting to hear that the spiritual world is 3/4 the size of the entire creation. What is the difference between the spiritual world and the material world is the question. So basically, when we think about these two worlds, the material world as we know, because we exist in it right now, we know that it has a dualistic approach or duality that's surrounding us. So there's pleasure, pain, you have seasons of heat and seasons of extreme cold. We have gain and loss, happiness and sorrow. So these pairs of opposites are one of the essential ways that this material world, thrives, how it works. That's just how it was designed. And also we have a very temporary nature of existence, where in terms of like how long we're going to live, which is obviously days are numbered for everyone, for everything. The nature of everything, I mean, even our, the pleasure that we're looking for, we have that in momentary spurts. It's something that comes and goes. So when we have that type of a temporary nature of life, nothing is certain. So that's really how the material world is. And when you look at the spiritual world, everything is constant. In the material world, change is the only constant. But in the spiritual world, there's no change. There's no bodies to speak of. We do have spiritual bodies, but we don't have material bodies that can get sick or diseased. There's no death. There's no sense of time. And like I said, everything is constantly blissful, where there's no break to that bliss. There's no pause or stoppage from that bliss. You're constantly living in bliss, which is definitely not what we experience here in the material world. So I guess that's how I would answer that question. Did you have anything to add, Vikram?
No, I think you very eloquently put it.
Okay. Second question is, according to scientific theories, it states that our universe is roughly 13.8 billion years old. But in the last episode, Vikramji stated the universe is roughly at the midpoint of its existence, around 155.5 trillion years of age now. My question is, how could science be so off the mark?
Very interesting question. I'm by no means an expert, but if I were to theorize, I would say that, we've talked about what we know in terms of material information, but there's a lot that we don't know. And I think, the universe is, it's quite a mystery still, quite a lot that we don't understand. And, with science, we can study and we can come up with theories and information based on whatever things we're able to discover. But there's still a lot of gaps. And so I think that probably accounts for what the discrepancy is. So there's things that we can gauge from what our spiritual texts say, and then there's the scientifically so-called proven aspect of it. So that's the gap there. That's my theory.
Yeah, I think the scientists are just, they're using a lot of their, their knowledge and different aspects of how they calculate time and how they can go back in history and try to trace things back and date things back. But, none of these are, that's why they're called theories. They're not factual. They're all what you want to believe. They're presenting the best case based on the conclusions they have come to. And I'm not discounting or disrespecting any of those, but I've also seen, the number 13.8 billion is is what I've also seen. But I've also seen another study more recently that said that it's almost twice that much. So again, there are several scientists over time that are going to do their individual studies, and based on whatever they are using to do their studies, they're coming up with their own conclusions, and they may differ. And that's where spiritual wisdom that comes from the scriptures is very, very sure of the formula that it's giving us to calculate these things. There's no deviation there. The same thing that's in the Vedas is also in the Bhagavad Gita. It's re-mentioned by Lord Krishna. So there's no contradiction here between the scriptures in that sense, right? The calculation of time is the same that's explained in all the scriptures where it's covered. Whereas scientific studies keep evolving and changing, and they're giving us different data and different information and different conclusions. So that's the difference that I see, and that's where my inclination is to lean on the Holy Scriptures. But of course, it is a big discrepancy because science is talking about billions, and Sanatana Dharma's texts are playing in the trillions. So it's quite a big difference there. So really, I would say believe whatever you wish to, but please do your research. If you're a follower or a spiritual seeker, I would certainly read and see if any of the different scriptures are giving you different information. That's when you can say, okay, this is confusing now. I'm not quite sure. But if you're seeing the same thing, then this is something that's been downloaded into these divine sages who composed these texts. This isn't something they're coming up with. This is something that through divine intervention, they've actually received this information, and they're writing it down so that the people of the future generations can benefit from it. And now on to our third and final question. Darwin's theory of evolution is widely taught and accepted as the basis of how apes eventually became human beings. I used to believe in that theory as well, but now I am doubtful based on what you said about human civilization existing in different yugas. Despite getting some clarity on this, how do you explain the Vanaras that existed during the Treta Yuga or the Ramayana timeframe? And this is a very interesting question because, otherwise you don't really see that connection between the apes and the humans. I do see consciousness that's similar between the two species, Vikram, but the Vanar species that existed during the Treta Yuga and maybe even the Dwapar Yuga at some point, it was that's what kind of like gives some credence to Darwin's theory. I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very fascinating to actually see that correlation and the fact as to why maybe it was like that at that time and why it's different now. I mean, again, it's hard for us to know for sure, but yeah, I mean, perhaps society was meant to continue to change and grow, and different species either become more at the forefront or less at the forefront as time goes on. So it's a fascinating thing, and definitely it's interesting to see the correlation with Darwinism as well.
Yeah. I sometimes wonder, though, the question that I come to is, if the apes ultimately did become humans, how did that evolution stop? Because you would think that one of the species would be extinct at that point. But overall, it seems like at some point that evolution happened, and then the species of apes just continue to be species of apes. Like you don't see apes having human babies or apes becoming humans in today's time, and we don't see humans looking like apes either. So I'm just like, I don't. It's kind of a that's the questionable thing that comes to my mind. When did this evolution stop?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and of course, a difficult one for there to be an answer. But
it's one to think. But about
again, one to think about for sure. And I think one of the things there could be, again, not saying anything with certainty or maybe even scientific validity, but it's possible that there was maybe a certain groups of a particular species that were able to pick up on certain things and evolve, whereas other branches of that species didn't, because the world was much less populated at that time. And so it was easy for certain groups to be isolated and certain groups to be more congregated. So it's possible that apes existed in one place that was just apes, whereas, some interacted and grew their skill set in a way where that happened. So, but that's the only logical thing I can think of here.
Yeah, when I was sort of researching this question, and even prior to that, I was listening to another podcast that I enjoy listening to called The Ranveer Show. Many of you may know that it's a very popular podcast that's done in India by this guy named Ranveer Alabadia. So there's a special 4-part, I think, series that he did on the Valmiki Ramayana. Yashodeep Deodhar was the guest. He's a guy who's actually studied the Valmiki Ramayana in great detail. And he was talking about this very topic of Vanars, the species of Vanars. And I wanted to actually play that for our audience. Just a clipping of that.
Essentially, the Vanaras were forest dwellers who dressed up like monkeys. Humans who dressed up like monkeys. They were not a different race. And they also had the same cultural roots as the people who lived in the cities and janpads. Now, I will, break down each of these parts for you. The word Vanar in Hindi means bandar, right? And so why not monkey? The word says so. And Valmiki has also used the word Kapi, Hari, Plavangamaha, Shakhamrugaha. All of these are used to denote monkeys. However, all of these are adjectives. So Plavangamaha, although used to denote a monkey, actually means those who leap. So even humans who leap can be called Plavangamaha. And interestingly, Valmiki has also used the words Nari, Jana, Stri and Purush for the Vanaras. He has also called them Vanavasinaha, Kananaukasaha, Vanaukasaha, all of which means forest-dwelling people. So on one hand, he has called them Nari, Jana, Stri, Purush, humans. On the other hand, Vanaraha, Plavangamaha. Essentially, they were humans who dressed up like monkeys. Even today, forest dwellers, we see sometimes put on feathers or horns to dress up like some chosen animal.
Okay. Because you have given so much of your own time, energy and life to the Ramayana, I would love to ask you a little tangential question.
Okay.
When I say Hanumanji to you or Sugriv, what are you visualizing when it comes to the face?
A forest dweller who puts on some type of a face mask to look like a monkey. Similar to, like I said, some forest dwellers would put on feathers or other accessories, something that they could take off. Because even now, Sugriv is telling him, take off the monkey attire. Kapirupam parityajya. So it is something that they could take off. And also, a lot of stories related to the tail. So they also wore a tail.
What are you visualizing when it comes to Hanumanji's face?
So definitely he was the greatest of them all. He was well versed in the Vedas, Shastras, and there's something very special about him. But in terms of powers, let's say, or he is like the Vanaras, but the greatest among them. So you asked me visually, if you see, even if you go to ancient temples, for example, and you look at sculptures, Hanuman, Vali, Sugriv, other Vanaras are all shown similarly. So you can't make out from just their size or proportion. Also, interestingly, in some of the temples, their size and proportion is the same as the size and proportion of Shri Ram and Lakshman. Right? So perhaps even those sculptors were indicating that these are humans who dressed up like monkeys.
Gotcha. Okay.
Another example, we spoke about this. There were Vanaras who were born to rishis. And some specific examples have been given. Maharshiputram Maricham Archishmantam Mahakapim. So Archishman was the son of Rishi Marichi and he was a Vanar. So they became Vanaras. It was a lifestyle that they chose. Clearly not a different species, right? I mean, you are saying that they were born to rishis. Some of the people of Ayodhya were born to rishis. And Ravan as well. His father was a rishi. So there is no racial difference, and definitely not a different species.
Very interesting take, huh, Vikram?
Yeah, for sure. I've never heard that. So fascinating to see that perspective.
And I guess I can see some sense in that as well, in what
Yeah,
he's saying.
absolutely.
Because if you actually think about it, they say Kesari was the biological father, the Vanar chieftain was the biological father of Hanuman. And his wife, Anjana or Anjani, was actually a regular woman. I don't think
Right.
she was a ape-like woman,
Right.
So it
Yeah.
brings to question a lot of these things. So I guess we really don't know at the end of the day, but there's a lot of interesting perspectives. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah, so I hope this these questions were answered to whoever asked them, and we appreciate them, and we look forward to taking more questions like these from our listeners. So coming to our main topic today, like I said, today is a deity special. So we're actually going to be speaking about multiple avatars of Lord Vishnu. And today happens to be, just like we did for Ram Navami, today happens to be Narasimha Chaturdashi, which is the appearance day of Shri Narasimha Dev, Lord Narasimha, in the man-lion hybrid incarnation, which is a very unique and very powerful, very impactful avatar. And we're also going to speak about, tomorrow actually happens to be Kurma Jayanti. So the Kurma avatar. And then in between these two is the Varaha avatar. Now, one thing I want to touch on is how we were just talking about the Darwin's theory of evolution. You have species of life that start from the aquatic level, and then they evolve into the amphibian or reptilian, and then the mammal, primate, and then in a human being. So following that order of evolution, Lord Vishnu has actually shown that well before this theory even came about. In fact, you never know. Darwin may have actually heard about this and been inspired to actually make his theory somewhere centered around this. The first avatar was something that Vikram spoke about, I think, in the last episode, where he talked about the Matsya avatar, the fish incarnation, which then later, the next one in line is the tortoise incarnation, which is the Kurma avatar. So I'll just touch on that really quick. It's a very quick story, so we won't have a lot of detail on that. But ultimately, what happened was there's this causal ocean that had to be churned in order for the what they call the Amrit, or what contained the nectar of immortality in it. And that's what the gods and the demons, the Devatas and the Asuras, those two clans, had actually come together to cohesively be able to bring all the treasures that are hidden beneath the ocean out. And ultimately, both wanted that pot of nectar of immortality. And so they were using a mountain as this rod, in a sense, to kind of help churn the ocean. And they also used the Vasuki snake. It was a very like 5-hooded snake or something, which is just like what Lord Vishnu sleeps on, that Sheshnag. So it's similar to that. And that snake was used as a rope to tie around that mountain, the Mandarachal mountain, I think it was. And the demons were doing the tug of rope on one side, and the Devatas, the demigods, were doing it on the other side. And ultimately, a lot of amazing, unique things came out of there, including something not so desired for, which was the poison. But anyway, the focal point, the actual avatar of the tortoise, Lord Vishnu took that incarnation to give stability to that mountain. So basically, it was placed on the back of the shell, so that he could provide a stable foundation, a platform for that mountain to be sitting, which they were churning, and it was rotating around. And had that stability not been there, their churning of the ocean would have been a disaster. So, that was the glory of the Kurma avatar. So we pay our obeisances to Lord Kurma avatar from that. So it's a beautiful story. I certainly request all our listeners to learn more about that. There's a lot of interesting things that happen after that, so you should definitely read about it. But the other two avatars we wanted to spend a little more time on today, which is the divine boar of incarnation called the Varaha avatar and the Narasimha avatar, as I mentioned earlier. So, interesting thing is, Vikram, did you know there's a backstory to these two avatars, in the sense there's a purpose for why they appeared in order to kill demoniac forces? There were two demons who were brothers, and the first one's name was Hiranyaksh, and the other one was Hiranyakashipu. So those were two brothers who were set out to terrorize the world and be the most powerful force in the world in all the three loks. And they largely succeeded in doing this.
Is it the story about them being the guards of Lord Vishnu?
Yes.
Yes.
Actually, they were the doorkeepers, as Vikram mentioned, or Dwarapalas, as they're called, of Lord Vishnu's Vaikuntha abode. And the four mind-born sons, enlightened boys, very young boys, the Sanaka, Sanandana, Sanatana, and Sanat Kumara, there were four of them who were essentially enlightened at a very young age. And they, like I said in the previous episode, they did not want to contribute to being progenitors on this material plane. So they decided to just have the ability to travel between the spiritual world and the material world, go wherever they wanted to, and they wanted to come and see Lord Vishnu, who is always available to his devotees. And when they arrived at Vaikuntha, at the door of Lord Vishnu's abode, the doorkeepers, their names were Jaya and Vijaya. So Jaya and Vijaya, who also looked like Lord Narayan, they had four arms and the gadha, mace, the disc, everything. They looked just like Lord Vishnu. Interesting thing is, I heard in Vaikuntha, everybody who makes it there gets that appearance. But of course, they're not as powerful as Lord Vishnu, but you look like the deity, you resemble the deity that you're dwelling with, which is interesting. Unfortunately, they had ego, even in that plane. And they said, our Lord Vishnu is resting right now, and he's not available to meet with anybody. And the four boys said, the Lord never sleeps for his votaries. We're here to see him. Please let him know that we're here. And they refused to do that. So with this back and forth, ultimately, the boys lost their patience, and they cursed the two doorkeepers and said, you must come to the Mrityu Lok, or this earthly plane, in, I think they said 7 lifetimes as humans. So they said 7 lifetimes. Then Lord Vishnu actually appears after this curse is casted upon them. And Lord Vishnu comes and asks for the forgiveness of those 4 brahmanas and says, I'm so sorry that my doorkeepers prevented you from meeting me. They're my dear doorkeeper, so can you please do something to alter your curse? Because they say once a Brahman gives a curse, they can alter the terms of that, but they cannot remove it. So ultimately, they gave Jaya and Vijay a choice. They said, you can either come in 3 lives in demoniac birth and take demoniac birth, or you come in 7 lifetimes as a worshiper or as a pious person worshiping the Lord. They said the duration of time for 7 lifetimes would be way too much for them. They didn't want to be away from Vaikuntha for that long. So ultimately, they chose the 3 lifetimes because that would be completed much sooner. So that led to the demons we introduced to you, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, who were in the Satyug. And then we had in the Treta Yuga Ravana and Kumbhakarna, the same two incarnated as Ravana and Kumbhakarna in Treta Yuga. And in Dwapar Yuga, it was Shishupal and Dantavakra. So, and Lord Vishnu, in his incarnations in these respective yugas or eras of time, was the one who killed them and released them from that birth. And ultimately, they were restored back to Vaikuntha as the doorkeepers. So a very, very, interesting story, and kind of gives a good context as to why Lord Vishnu is the one who actually kills them in different avatars. So coming back to the Varaha avatar, so when Hiranyaksha, the first brother of the two, he had meditated upon Lord Brahma. Basically what they ask for is immortality, but then since that's not something they can get, they try to make it. They try to lay out all these different options for Lord Brahma to grant the boon where it's close enough, and then they start thinking that it's okay. I'm pretty much immortal. There's no way that anybody can defeat me. So the interesting thing is that he had actually mentioned a lot of different animal species as well, but he didn't speak about the boar. He left that one out. So, and you'll see the similar thing happening with the brother. But so when the Devatas started to feel the terror from Hiranyaksha's power that he was starting to grow, and he was terrorizing Indralok and all these different planes of existence, and basically saying, establishing his supremacy and power of evil all over the place. The Devatas, the demigods, went to Lord Brahma and were asking him to find a solution to fight against his own boon that he had given Hiranyaksha. He's like, if you've given the boon, then you need to provide the solution for this. And Lord Brahma said we should all meditate upon Lord Vishnu and ask him for that help, because he knows that Lord Vishnu is ultimately his creator. So he's like, I can't, find the resolution. It's ultimately Lord Vishnu who's the preserver. He's going to have to do something about it. So that's when they all turn to Lord Vishnu. He does this intense meditation. And then through that meditative experience that he had, Lord Vishnu actually came in the form of a small boar, half human, half boar kind of form, from his nostril, from Lord Brahma's nostril. I mean, this is something you would imagine, like, how does that even happen? I could never even imagine that. But like we said, God works in mysterious ways. We can't really clearly define anything that he's going to do or predict anything. It's just the way, always something unique and special. So out comes Lord Varaha, and he becomes a humongous form of that, the boar, half man, half boar. And what happens is, before this, actually, is Hiranyaksha takes the earth off of its axis. As we mentioned, there are the lower realms, there are the upper realms, and then there's the earth in the middle. And he basically takes the earth and makes all the inhabitants suffer. And he wants to take it down to the nether regions, into the dark waters, and he puts the earth, submerges it into those waters. And Lord Varaha actually senses out where is Mother Earth, and he goes there and goes underneath these waters, puts the earth on his snout or tusk, right, lifts it with his tusks, and comes out of those waters. And that's when Hiranyaksha gets signal, I guess, that whatever he did has been now reversed, and they engage in a battle, and Lord Varaha destroys Hiranyaksha. So that's, in short, the story of the Varaha Avatar, which was also part of Satyug. And then comes the Narasimha Avatar, the story for that. But Vikram, let me know what your perspective is. But I actually think that with the Narasimha Avatar, right, like I said, it's a very powerful, impactful, beautiful avatar of God. But I feel like the story is more about the devotee.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that particular story has a lot of layers to it. It's not just about, I know we're going to get into the story, so I won't mention the end, but it's not just about how that story ends and the conclusion. It's about bhakti, It's about the triumph of good over evil. It's about creativity, and I know you know what I'm referring to, but the gods can be creative to try to resolve a problem, and that's what Narasimha Avatar is about as well. So it's a lot. It's a lot. It's also a revenge story in a way with the Hiranyakashipu angle, and
Yeah, absolutely.
so there's a lot in there, and of course, I know you may mention this as well, but it also sets the precedent for one of Hinduism's most famous holidays. So, a lot
Yes,
there.
absolutely. And you just said it towards the end there, which was, the revenge angle, which, anytime one of the demons, loses a close associate, in this case, his brother Hiranyaksha had been killed by Vishnu in the form of Varaha avatar. Hiranyakashipu, the younger brother, was livid and said, I must avenge my brother's death. And he tells all his demon clan that he's going to be away for some time from his kingdom, and he's going to do some vigorous austerities and tapasya and meditation and all these things. And he does that. The most difficult way of meditating is when you have literally like no food, no water, and this is for thousands of years, which is incredible, mind-boggling to even think about. And really, with one foot in the air and one foot on the ground, keeping your hands up in a namaste prayer pose. So you're basically stretching out all your limbs and not giving your body any sort of relief. It shows that even the demons had the ability to do these austerities at a level of perfection. We think that only the pious people can do that. No, even the ones who have so-called evil intentions, if they really want something, they can put their ego aside and their comforts aside, and they can find a way to propitiate that deity that they wish to get the boon from. So it shows the dedication and the spirit that they have, which is amazing. And it came to the point where he was skin and bones. Parasites were eating away at him and everything. And it's, he was really didn't look anything like what he was when he started this. But Lord Brahma finally appeared in front of him and said, my son, you, Hiranyakashipu, you have done tremendous tapasya for me to appear. What would you like me to grant you? And obviously the first inclination they always have, like I said, is, please make me immortal so I never die. And Lord Brahma says, that's not possible for me to do because even I have a lifespan. So I can't give you something that I myself don't have, which is immortality. So then he, again, just like his brother, he starts putting down all these conditions. Vikram, do you happen to remember all the things he said to Lord Brahma?
Yes, I believe so. So he can't get the immortality that he wants. Brahmaji tells him that everything that is born must die. So Hiranyakashipu says, okay, well then grant me this, that I don't die in day or night. I don't die inside or outside. I don't die by any weapon or any sort of physical object. And I don't die by an animal, and I don't die by a man. Generally speaking, he mentions a whole bunch of opposites so that he covers his bases as much as possible.
Exactly, yeah. So then, Lord Brahma grants these conditions and says, sure, you got it. Now, again, this gives rise to terroristic acts, because this is when they believe that and just to kind of backtrack a little bit, Lord Brahma actually did restore him to his original physical condition. And now he felt, I've been granted this. This is as good as immortality for me. and I'm going to terrorize the world and take over all the different realms and, basically go on a spree of either killing people or harassing them, getting them to chant my name instead of any god's name. So this is how egotistical and power drunk these demons can be. And we see that once again when Treta Yuga comes and Ravana is also like this. So they're very, very drunk off the power and the powers that they've been granted. None of the demigods or anybody can stand a chance against them. And ultimately, it leads to a lot of stress that's being put on the earth and all the different lokas. So in this time period, there are multiple wars that are going on between the demigods, the devatas, and the asuras, the demon clan. And over the course of these battles, there was a time when Indra, the king of the demigods, actually abducted Hiranyakashipu's wife, who was pregnant at the time. And he had kept her captive, and because he thought that, Hiranyakashipu is going to have a child. And if this demon's going to have a child, we might as well take his wife and somehow find a way to eliminate the child so that we don't have another evil heir apparent to Hiranyakashipu. And Narada Mahamuni, who's the great celestial sage, who's also, his Jayanti is on the 13th. So we have Narada Jayanti as well. He's also a mind-born son of Lord Brahma, who always comes to the aid, or comes to the aid of those who are on the verge of detachment or losing the interest in this world or whatever, and he develops devotees out of them. So in this case, there's a devotee that's in the womb of Hiranyakashipu's wife. Her name is Kayadu. And during that time when Indra held her captive, Narada actually, she wasn't happy there. So Narada actually released her, took her to an ashram, and he personally told her the glories of Lord Vishnu. And as we know in several of our stories, several of the Puranic stories, we have heard that the child who is within the womb is, remember, we said this in the last episode, they have that sense of hearing. The first sense that they can use is the sense of sound. When Sage Narada is actually narrating all these nectarian stories about Lord Vishnu and his glories and his different avatars, the young child within the womb is actually listening and gaining so much wisdom from that. And the child who eventually comes to be born is Prahlad. When he's born, he's already a devotee. The wife and son do come back home and they reside with Hiranyakashipu in his kingdom. But as the boy is growing, Hiranyakashipu is so powerful now, he's almost pretty much godlike within the material realm. And there's nobody to challenge him. And he basically the demons have a guru named Shukracharya, who's basically their well-wisher for the demon clan. And he's always looking out for their best. And he knows when Lord Vishnu might be appearing in some form or another to oppose them. So he's always having them do different sacrifices and different things to gain more and more power, to become as immortal as possible. Sage Shukracharya's sons were actually running a gurukul in Hiranyakashipu's kingdom. And Hiranyakashipu had asked his son Prahlad to be educated there, and essentially taught everything that he would want those children to be growing up knowing, which is about how great he is, how powerful he is, nothing about God, and nothing about the Vedas or anything like that. So this was complete brainwashing type of a school that he was sent to. And what he did in essence is he continued to sing the glories of Lord Vishnu through bhajan kirtan and chants and Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, which was the mantra that Sage Narada had actually imparted to his mother and chanted that he heard in the womb. So he would Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we say that in the beginning of our prayers too. So that was something that that was starting to rub off on the other children who were attending this Gurukul as well. Just like Dhruva Maharaj, there was another character named Dhruva, who was also a big Vishnu Bhakt or devotee. So similarly, Prahlad also was in the Gurukul, and like I said, he was telling all the children who were actually from the demon clan. Some of them were even his brothers, who were very much close to their father, Hiranyakashipu. So they were all basically singing his glories, whereas Prahlad was sort of like in an island on his own, singing Lord Vishnu's glories. And he continued to tell them stories and sing, and they started to get enchanted by what he was doing, and it started to feel good to them. So they were doing the same thing. And every time after his period of studies would be over, just like we have a school year, he would come home, and Hiranyakashipu was a very loving father. He embraced his son, Prahlad, and he put him on his lap and said, "What did you learn?" And he was hoping to hear that he learned how, about like warfare or politics or how to manage a kingdom or whatever Hiranyakashipu's syllabus was. That's what he wanted, curriculum. That's what he wanted Prahlad to learn. And how great his father is, godlike how his father is, and how his father should be worshipped by everybody. But he actually told him the opposite, which was how great Lord Vishnu is. And he said that repeatedly. And every single time he did that, Hiranyakashipu would get so angry and say, "This is our enemy that you're glorifying. I can't stand this. You need to stop thinking like this, because he killed your uncle, and in essence, he's our enemy." And Prahlad continues to tell him, no, he's not anybody's enemy. He's destroying the ones who oppose him, who transgress his law. But anybody who's peaceful and who wants the best for humanity, none of those people are being harmed. And he's within everyone, and even within you. And this is something that Hiranyakashipu can't stand. He just can't believe it. He's like, what is my son? What is he being taught? And he starts to fire the teachers from the Gurukul and replace them. And no matter what he does, Prahlad's attitude doesn't change. And Prahlad's not aggressive or angry or retaliating to his father in a disrespectful manner. He's very polite, very soft-spoken. But he's not afraid of telling the truth about his devotion and his conviction about God always being there to protect. And ultimately, he does protect, right, Vikram?
Yes, he certainly does, in many different ways.
Many attempts.
Many attempts, yeah. There's many
Prahlad.
attempts, and with each attempt, he protects him. I mean, some of the ones that come to mind are, the demons tried to stab Prahlad with the Trishul, and the Trishul is not able to pierce his skin. They throw him off a mountain, and as he's falling off the cliff, from the ocean below, who rises out of there but Lord Vishnu himself, and captures him. And then, when all these attempts fail, then Hiranyakashipu decides to send his sister, Holika, to do the deed. So Holika, she had a very unique boon that she got from Lord Brahma, which is that fire cannot kill her. So what she decides to do is, she decides to have Prahlad sit in her lap. She will have a fire burn. They'd set up a pyre, she would sit on it, and Prahlad would sit in her lap, and then, because fire can't kill her, he would burn to ashes. Now, when that whole scenario is actually set up, all of a sudden, she catches on fire and Prahlad is okay. And in those final moments out of anger, she cries out that, hey, Lord Brahma, you deceived me. You said that fire cannot kill me. And Lord Brahma appears and says, no, I gave you this firepower for your own self-protection, not for the destruction of others, not to murder others. And I also told you that if you were to use this incorrectly, then you yourself would be, burnt to a crisp.
Yeah.
And so that is what happened. Now, about Holika, I don't know the exact correlation here, and Pratt, please do add in here. But the holy holiday is named after Holika. Now, I'm assuming very much like Diwali is a celebration of good over evil. I know Holi is a festival of color, but I think it also, in some ways, is a similar type of thing with the victory of good over evil. Yeah, I mean, these were just some of the attempts, and I think.
I think there was also something like, in a room full of poisonous snakes or something like that. And
poisonous snakes. I think also an elephant, a wild elephant.
A wild elephant to trample him.
Yeah, and nothing made it through. And I think after all these attempts failed, Hiranyakashipu was extremely frustrated. And it was at this point that he got into an argument with Prahlad, and he's like, what kind of power do you have that nothing can kill you? We've tried everything. And basically Prahlad explained to him that, look, I cannot be killed based on what you want. When it's time for me to die, I will die. So if that means dying by your hand or by the hand of those you send, then that's what it is. And if not, then not. And God is everywhere. So that particular point struck Hiranyakashipu. He said, okay, God is everywhere. So where do you see? So Prahlad said, in everything, literally everything. I see it in you, I see it in me, I see it in all these demons that you have there. So Hiranyakashipu, he looks around and he sees an ornate pillar. And he says, is your God in this pillar also? So Prahlad said, yes, he's in that pillar too. So then Hiranyakashipu walks to one of his demons. He grabs a mace and he says, okay, look, if your God is in this pillar, then tell him to watch himself because I am about to take care of him. And then Hiranyakashipu breaks the pillar with his mace, and all of a sudden, Shri Narasimha Bhagwan appears out of the pillar. And how does Shri Narasimha Bhagwan look? He is a man's body, a lion's face, and this is a completely unique appearance. Something, I mean, of course, there's Vara as well, but this is something that was even more awe-inspiring and even more terrifying, we can say.
Fierce, very fierce.
Very fierce.
Yeah.
And after a struggle, Shri Narasimha puts Hiranyakashipu on his lap, and there's an Akashvani at that time. And the Akashvani says, hey, Hiranyakashipu, remember the boon that you asked, Lord Brahma. You asked not to die in day or night. Look outside, it's twilight. So it's not morning or evening. You asked to die not by a man or an animal. Look at Shri Narasimha Bhagwan. He's not really a man, not really an animal.
Yeah.
You also mentioned that you wouldn't die by any sort of weapon or the physical object. Shri Narasimha is about to kill you with his nails, his really sharp claws.
Yes.
And with that,
One more.
Yes. Which one am I forgetting?
He didn't want to be on the earth or in the sky, so he was in the middle.
Oh yes,
he was on the lap of Narasimha.
He was on the lap of Narasimha. That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And so then, subsequently, Shri Narasimha tore open Hiranyakashipu's stomach, and that was the end of that demon. And that was the Narasimha Avatar.
And you know what was interesting, and the aftermath of this was Shri Narasimha was very, very angry. Even after killing of Hiranyakashipu, it was hard to calm him down. Lord Shiva came there, Lakshmi came there, because Lakshmi is the consort of Lord Vishnu. So Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lakshmi, nobody dared to try to calm him down, because they were all so afraid of his wrath that he was continuously feeling. And that's when everybody asked Prahlad, his devotee, his great devotee, who was the reason for Lord Narasimha to appear in protection of his devotee. He wanted they pushed him to the forefront and said, "Please, you go. We'll come behind you. Don't worry. You go calm him down." And the young boy sang such a beautiful stuti to him, glorifying him, and that ultimately calmed him down. You know, that's when Narasimha Dev actually had a smile on his face. And there's some depictions showing Narasimha Dev actually having Prahlad in his lap. There's some murtis like that. There's also a murti where you see Lakshmi sitting on his lap as well, Narasimha's lap. So some beautiful depictions of Narasimha in different moods, you know.
Absolutely. And it's it's really a one of a kind avatar. And Pratt, if you like, I can just mention a couple of interesting points.
Please do.
About nursing and Varaha avatar as well. So,
please.
You know, with the Narasimha avatar, and actually Varaha as well. So, you know, Lord Vishnu had Krishna, he had Ram, he had Buddha, he had a lot of these avatars. But these avatars in particular are considered as Ugra avatars, meaning that avatars that came out of a sense of anger. Right. And that's really what these two fierce avatars represent, is when really you have some of the worst demons out there wreaking havoc on the universe. It's not like God is going to take the sitting down. God is going to come and with full force protect those who love him and those who are good people and who are his devotees. So that is there. But you know, people also believe that with the half man and half lion form, that it brings together qualities in Narasimha's character that is really melding qualities that both a human has and an animal has, the best of both, as they say. So intellect, strength, to make decisive decisions, to think strategically, all of that comes together in that avatar. And you know, that's really something significant to note, which I didn't think of before, but based on my research, it's interesting to find that. Now, with the Varaha, you know, when we hear the story of his killing of Hiranyaksha, we think it's kind of like a one-day thing, right? That they got into battle on the same day and then it just ended and that was that. But based on what I have read, it is something that lasted. The battle lasted for 1,000 years, if I'm not mistaken. So think about that. 1,000 years battle.
The time stuff is mind-boggling.
Right. Yeah. Right. And really, I mean, these avatars are some of the most interesting, some of the most adventurous stories you will find, and I think, you know, what I would also say is that these avatars are particularly fascinating to children.
Oh, absolutely.
Children love, and I know this firsthand because I have shared these stories with nieces and nephews, and you know, they love seeing the visual representation of it, but they love hearing about it as well because there's a lot of adventure in it, and kids love animals, and so I think that these stories also resonate across all ages because of the different meanings that they have.
Absolutely. Interesting thing I'd like to add about Varaha Avatar, actually, one interesting thing that I recently realized is that when we do puja, we speak about where we're doing the puja, what is the time period, what is the kalpa, what is the manvantara. We spoke about all these things. You spoke about it last episode. So today is the kalpa, the day of Brahma that we're in right now, is called Shweta Varaha Kalpa. That's mentioned during all the pujas. So it's interesting because that's the day of Brahma that we are experiencing right now. So it's in honor of, it's connected with Varaha Avatar. So very cool.
Absolutely. I've noticed that phrase also.
Yeah.
But I wasn't 100% sure if it was related to that or not, but you've shed light on that.
Yeah, so Shweta Varaha Kalpe Vaivasvata Manvantare. So Vaivasvata Manu is the Manu who is
the Manu of this time, of this
time.
era.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or the Adam of this time, we should say, for those who don't know
yeah.
Manu. The first man, yes. And it's interesting, Vikram,
right.
because we both love going to the Hare Krishna temple. There, you must have noticed that they do the Narasimha Arati. And I had the good fortune of speaking with one of the most popular kirtan artists of ISKCON. His name is Gauravani. And I had an opportunity to interview him. And I'm going to play a little clip of that because in that interview, I was asked by Vidya, my wife, to ask him, what is the significance of the Narasimha Arati? Why do they sing it?
Well, my understanding is that it came about in an organic way, that Prabhupada first introduced it when there was difficulty or troubles. He taught the devotees that just like Prahlad, you can take shelter of the Lord in times of difficulty. And I think in the early years, there were so many difficulties. So one of them was Prabhupada's health and well-being. He was an older man and his body was not so strong. He had heart trouble even on the ship over to America.
Yeah.
So he taught his disciples to sing the Narasimha prayers as something that they could do for their kind of worry and anxiety for him as their guru. In a healthy way, he taught them to take shelter of Narasimha. If you want me to get stronger, you pray to Narasimha Dev and he will protect me. That was Prabhupada's initial introduction to them. And so there's always a bit of that when we sing, that we're praying for the protection of the movement and for the protection of our guru, or praying for our Prabhupada. And often people come to the temple, in times of challenge or difficulty, so it's nice that they can take shelter of Narasimha. The story of Prahlad is one of the seminal stories of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I know that as a kid, the story of Prahlad and his abusive father ultimately ends with this great fight where Narasimha, rips the demon apart, and a lot of adults find it just totally like too gory and,
Yeah.
But the kids love it.
Yes, that story really resonated with me as a child as well. And my grandfather during satsang would actually tell my mom to put me on the stage with him and ask me to narrate the story of Prahlad. And so, yes, as children, we love that story. Yes.
There's something about the fact that children love the story of Narasimha that makes me feel, that helps me see how important that story is, that it resonates on a deep level with innocent people.
Mm-hmm.
Prahlad just loved everyone, and the world around him was being so cruel to him.
Yes.
But he didn't care. He just kept loving everyone. And in the end, his trust and his love protected him and conquered all evil.
Yeah. And even when he was asked by Narasimha Dev to, what do you want? I'm so pleased with you. He said that he didn't want any business transactions with God.
No, I don't. Yeah, he said, I just want pure love. And then Narasimha said, no, you have to ask for something. I want to give you something.
Yeah.
Then what did he say? What did he ask for? Do you remember? He said, please bless, if you must give me something, then bless my father that you forgive him. Because he was blinded by his materialism, and he didn't understand what he was doing was actually,
Okay. Yeah.
Please forgive him.
Yeah.
See, the kids love it.
Yeah. Comes right back to what we were talking about. One of the things, Vikram, that really stood out to me from what we just heard is how Prahlad asked Lord Narasimha for forgiveness for his father. And his father, as we just mentioned in the story, tried several times to kill him. And when we think about our own problems in life, we think that the sky is falling even for the smallest stuff. But in reality, we're not in that kind of a situation that's so grave where a parent is trying to kill you. So I would urge all of us, including our listeners, to reference the story when you think about your problems, your personal problems. They're not as big as you're making them out to be. So we pretty much covered the Narasimha story and Varaha story, and as well as Kurma. So 3 avatars in this episode, which has been a great blessing for us. And we're going to really quickly go through the holy days of this month. So May 2nd, we had Adi Shankaracharya Jayanti. Shankaracharya, actually the same day was Ramanuja Jayanti, another great Acharya and philosopher of the Vedanta. I don't want to get into all of the Advaita and all that stuff, but Adi Shankara, Ramanujacharya, and Surdas, who was the blind saint, who was able to see just the Bal Leelas, or the childhood plays of Krishna, and write so many bhajans and kirtans on that. So that's a very auspicious day. May 3rd, we had Ganga Saptami, which basically is a Hindu festival commemorating the descent of goddess Ganga from heaven to earth. It is celebrated on the 7th day of Shukla Paksha in the month of Vaishakha, typically in April or May. The day is considered auspicious for bathing in the Ganga, performing rituals, and seeking blessings for purity, spiritual liberation, or moksha and healing. Then we have Sita Navami, which was the birth appearance of Sita Devi. We know her to be the wife of Bhagwan Shri Ram, and we touched on her a little bit during the Ramayana episode, but basically she was the ideal for womanhood, taught so many amazing lessons to humanity through her wonderful avatar, and that was Mahalakshmi, who came as Sita Devi. Then May 7th, we had Rabindranath Tagore Jayanti, and spiritually he was deeply rooted in Vedantic traditions and Upanishadic thought. And he emphasized the unity of all things in God and the importance of love and creativity over dogma. So he also wrote our national anthem, the Indian national anthem. So Rabindranath Tagore, and he's wrote so many amazing poetic works that he's done. So that's that. And then we have Narasimha Chaturdashi, which we're doing the episode for today. Along with it being Narasimha Jayanti, today also happens to be Mother's Day. So I'd like to wish, on behalf of Team Divine Discoveries, all the wonderful mothers around the world who have sacrificed so much for their children, including mine and Vikram's and Christiane's. So happy Mother's Day to all the wonderful mothers all around the world. Thank you. Like I mentioned, we have Kurma Jayanti tomorrow. And also tomorrow happens to be full moon day, Buddha Purnima. was the day when he reached enlightenment or the state of nirvana. So that's what that celebrates. Then May 13th, Narada Jayanti. So I already spoke about Narada, Sage Narada. And the May 27th is Shani Jayanti, Shani Dev, one of the demigods, or I believe he represents one of the planets. So Shani Dev is considered as the lord of karma and justice and gives results to people according to their karma. Shani Jayanti is celebrated to commemorate the birth anniversary of Lord Shani Dev. According to the Hindu scriptures, Shani Dev was born to father Surya Dev, his father, and mother Swarna, who is also known as Chaya or shadow. And then lastly, we have Maharana Pratap Jayanti. Maharana Pratap was a devout Hindu. He was a warrior, one of the warriors fighting against the Mughal Empire at the time. And he was specifically a devotee of Lord Shiva. He is known for his deep faith and is said to have built several Shiva temples in his kingdom. His spiritual beliefs and religious practices were deeply intertwined with his actions as a ruler and a warrior. So that's the holy days of the month of May. Amazing, amazing month filled with a lot of amazing personalities. And so we'll go ahead with the Guruji's video where he's going to touch a little bit on Prahlad and Narasimha Dev as well. And then we will conclude.
There is a wonderful prayer by Prahlada, a great devotee in the Bhagavatam. That Prahlada statement, if you remember, Narasimha, man, lion, God, appeared before him and asked, "What boon shall I confer on you?" He says that undying love which the non-discriminating people have for the dying pleasures, let me have the same undying love towards your lotus feet. The same attachment which gives us a lot of pain in the world, emotionally and otherwise, when the same attachment to the impermanent things or impermanent bodies, including husband, wife, children, property, prosperity, wealth, beauty, youth, fame, everything, that undying love, that with which we try to achieve that, if that same attachment which gives pain emotionally, when the same attachment called asakti is turned towards Ishvara, God, from Nashvara, means that which is impermanent. We give our attachment to the impermanent things, all of us. Everything is impermanent other than truth. And most of us do not give enough attachment to the truth which is permanent. And we get attached to impermanent things and expect permanent happiness, which is illogical and unscientific and impossible. This is why the path of devotion is taught, especially in this 20th century. Whole world is emotionally crippled. Intellectually, exact to the second they land on the moon or Mars or any airport. Intellectually we are all right, emotionally we are all crippled. That could be corrected by turning that emotion towards God in everybody. If truly unconsciously we are loving our wife or girlfriend or boyfriend or things or office, property or wealth, whatever, unconsciously we are loving that true self, God, in that person.
And with that, we've come to the end of our show today. Thank you, Vikram, for joining me for another wonderful episode, and it's a blessing always. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. This was fun.
Yeah, it was. We were definitely a little more loosey-goosey for this one than we were the last one. Because we it's nice to tell stories and stories
Yes.
that we have grown up knowing. And,
Yes.
it was fun covering these divine avatars with you. All the listeners, please be well, stay blessed, and we wish you all nothing but the best. Thank you so much, and until next time, take care. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.